I brainwash myself to get rich. Come on, let's go. Come on in. All right, ladies. Now, before we get started, I have to give a shout out to Miss Christina Cabo. She was the one that helped me bring this vision to life. You know, I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of visions, but the act of actually finding the stuff and pulling it together, I simply cannot be bothered. So Christina Cabo helped me pull this office together, and we'll link her stuff in the description below so you can check her out in case you want your office to have a little freshen up too. All right, girls, let's get started. So I want you to think about your brain as like a computer. So a computer doesn't necessarily do something good or bad. It just does what it's programmed to do. And that's the same with your brain. Your brain just does what it is programmed to do. And so if you're doing stuff that you don't necessarily want to be doing or getting a result that you don't want to be getting, the best thing that you can do is just reprogram your brain to do what you want it to do. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. And I honestly think about it as brainwashing yourself, because listen, you're going to get brainwashed either way. You're going to get brainwashed unintentionally by just wandering through life and consuming random content and listening to random music, or you're going to brainwash yourself intentionally. And there's lots of ways that you can do this, but one of my favorite ways to do this is with your environment. And the most important environment for me to brainwash myself in is my office. You see, what you see will determine who you'll be. And so today I want to walk you through a few of the elements of my office that have a lot of meaning and that help me rewire my subconscious to help me ultimately wire my brain the right way to get the results that I want to get. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about three things. Number one, the micro environment you see, the messages that you say, and the models that you emulate. Your microenvironments are the things in your environment that are just right in front of you. And the first thing I want to talk about are your contraptions. Now, these contraptions are the gadgets and the little things that you use to really do your work super well. So one of the things that has made me the most amount of money than just about any contraption that I own is this right here. My trusty white Post-it pad. Yes, just a little Post-it pad with a few markers. This has made me the most amount of money out of anything, and I'll tell you why. So the majority of our brain's energy is actually used from vision. Our vision is what keeps us safe. It helps us know what to look forward to. It helps us know how to understand things and wrap our minds around things. And so when you are communicating a message and you aren't using any kind of visual aspect, you are telling 2/3 of the brain to pack up its bags and leave. You've lost a huge part of their attention. And I'm a sales girl, so what I do is I communicate messages. What I want is for people to believe new things and to understand new things. Harry Houdini says, what the eye see and the ears hear, the mind believes. Okay, so we are always communicating words for people to hear, but very seldom are people thinking about, okay, but what are the eyes seeing? And Albert Einstein says, what I can see, I can understand. We want people to understand things, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is that when they're communicating a message, we work so hard on the words that we say. Just because you say a message doesn't always mean that people perceive the message the same way that you have communicated it. And when you are drawing pictures, and this is very specific, when you're drawing pictures, what ends up happening is you are accurately communicating perception. And the truth is, perception is reality for other people. So to accurately communicate perception, you want to draw pictures as you communicate. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Macy, if the visuals are so important when you're communicating, why can't I just make some slides? That'd be a lot easier because you just tap through the slides. And honestly, it really is easier sometimes. The problem is that when you have slides, not all the time, but sometimes, you kind of rush through them. You already know what the next slide is going to be, and so you move really quickly. When you are drawing in front of people, it slows you down. And when you slow down, you slow your communication down, and people can kind of understand with you. Also, as you are drawing, people can finish the drawing in their own mind. So you're starting to enroll them in the communication process, which turns them into participators. Now, I have a feeling some of you are also thinking, Macy, listen, if you're brainwashing yourself to get rich, why wouldn't you have a fancy vibe board? You know what I'm saying? Like the ones you plug in and all these different colors. And I'm gonna be honest, those look really cool. And sometimes I question if I want one. But I've used vibe boards before, and what I found is that they lag. And sometimes if you touch the pin the wrong way, it will reverse what you just drew, and it just gets you out of flow, baby. And when you're communicating a message, you want to stay in flow and stay in rhythm. So I just like a good old white Post-it with some really thick, fat markers of different colors. My recommendation is that you always stick to about 3 colors per picture so that people can really stay engaged and it doesn't get too busy. Okay, so the next contraption I want to talk about are your technology tools. Now, I don't need a ton of fancy things. I just talked about how I don't need a vibe board, but what you do need is proper mic, decent camera, and good lighting. Now, I'm not even going to really get into the exact stuff I have. We can link it below, no problem. But I want to tell you the principle here. The point, and I learned this from my friend Omar, the point of good lighting, good audio, and good cameras is that it creates intimacy. People feel close to you when they can see you and they can hear you really well. And with intimacy comes trust, and people buy from people that they trust. So invest in that good camera and that good audio. And the truth is, like, genuinely, everything about you says either buy from me or don't buy from me. And so when you have the right tools and the right technology, that is just another deposit in the bank of you can trust me, you can buy from me. All right, so the next part of the way I like to set up my office is to think about the cadence in which I'm working, like the pace of what I'm really focused on. Of course, there are seasons. I like to think about my life in seasons as like on-stage seasons, backstage seasons. I'm in a state of either creating or preparing or performing. And so I have a calendar. It's actually Jesse Itzler's calendar, the Big A calendar. And I'm actually recording this in November of 2024, but I've had that 2025 calendar up for a long time because I'm always thinking about, okay, what am I preparing for? What am I speaking at? What event am I hosting? What conference am I coming to? And I'll give you a little trick. If you are a mom, the first thing you're going to want to put on your calendar are the days that your child is out of school or has early release. It's going to blow your mind how many nooks and crannies that there really are that you could have experiences with your kids. What I found is that when my kids don't have school or they have early release, I can't really work anyway. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So why not use that opportunity to make a little trip? So for example, in March of 2025, I saw that there were 2 days back to back where my kid did not have school and they also have early release. And it also happened to be my son's 2nd birthday that landed on those days. And so I was able to look at that kind of on a 10,000 foot view. And I thought, oh, that's the perfect time to do a little trip. And we planned Disney, 2 months ago because of this calendar. The calendar helps you have a view of like, okay, is it sort of balanced? Nothing's going to be perfectly balanced, but is it generally balanced in terms of my commitments for work, my commitments to my kids, and my commitments to my spouse? I'll also say this, I highly recommend, like if you see your calendar and you notice there's really not a lot of chances for you to quote unquote perform. Like you don't have a ton of stages, whether it's virtual stages or in-person stages that you are really speaking on. I actually recommend you setting them up for yourself. Have something like a sales event or a workshop call or a webinar call so you can get it in the state of preparing and performing. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So you want to look, okay, what am I really preparing for and how can I be in a state where I literally can't get it wrong when I am on stage? I see often a lot of times people, they end up on stage and you can tell this is like their 2nd or 3rd time like practicing it full out and they're on stage in front of people. So get in a state of preparing and practicing so that you can be ready for whatever comes your way. The other thing that I like to think about for the cadence in which I work is my habits. So one of the things that is really important for me personally is to go on a walk every single day. Anytime I'm in a funk, anytime I am in a mental block and I can't, or like a writer's block, or I don't know how to answer this problem that I'm trying to solve, I go on a walk. So I always have a change of clothes ready to go. And I have one other thing that's really important. I have a little box with things that I might need to go on a walk. I have a little bit of sunscreen, a little deodorant, I got a hair tie, I have an extra pair of socks in there, so there's nothing in my way that keeps me from getting on those walks, getting that fresh air for that fresh creativity. And I'll tell you what, a lethargic body leads to a lethargic mind. So get your body in motion so your mind can get in motion too. Up next is the commitments to be focused on. Commitments is such an intense word, but honestly, there's a huge difference between being interested in something and being committed to something. And so I like to have things that I'm genuinely committed to in front of me as much as possible. So one of the things that I'm really excited for next year is something called Sales Girl Social. Sales Girl Social is our weekday newsletter that is written by the queen herself, Miss Courtney Talley. And Sales Girl Social is so much more than a weekday newsletter. It's really a community of women who love to be excellent and also love to have fun. One thing that I never really had growing up was a role model of a working woman that did it with ease and also like had a pursuit of kind of like a challenge that made her grow, and she enjoyed it, but she was with her kid. I just feel like I never really had that. And so the Sales Girl Social community is a community of working women who really can have it all. It's a bunch of women who want to be rich, hot, and happy. And I'll tell you what, it's a good time. So I actually have some framed picture. It's actually wrapping paper of all of our, not all of them, but quite a few of our entries. They're blog posts. And it's just a reminder that I'm so excited where Sales Girl Social is going to go. And by the way, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe to Sales Girl Social. It is free, and it's like a 5-minute read that brings a little bit of pop culture to Sales Girl world. And also, listen, if you are creating content in any form or fashion, this is going to help you be infused with inspiration so that you can create content as well. So subscribe. We'll put it in the description below. We just talked about the micro environments of your office, and now I really want to move into the good stuff, the brainwashing stuff. And this part is all about the messages that you say. One of the most important things I like to keep in front of me is my compelling reason. What is a compelling reason? A compelling reason is really your reason for doing what you do. I don't know about you, but there are definitely some times where I'm like, wow, this is hard. I wouldn't mind not doing this anymore. It can get really challenging, right? And it's really important to me to keep going. Like the future version of me, the future Macy, is thinking like, girl, you got this, keep going. So I like to keep my compelling reason in front of me. Now, I have a few compelling reasons, but my absolute main compelling reason are my children. But here's the kicker. I feel really passionate about not having photos of your children in your office, or really any family member at all. I don't know about you, but I have a 2-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. And I actually have a picture on my phone cover right now, my background. And I took the photo like 4 months ago, and they look so different already. The pictures of your kids that you take, they expire like that. And I notice when I look at older pictures of my kids, I kind of get stuck in the past. I start thinking things like, oh, they've grown up so fast, or oh, like, that was such a good time. This was really good. Remember that trip to Disney? That was amazing. And you kind of get sucked into the past, and it kind of feels a little heavy. I don't know if you feel that way, but I know I definitely feel that way. But listen, my house full of pictures of my children. I'm really passionate about keeping my photos organized. I have photo albums, and I keep my framed photos updated as much as possible. But in the office, I want to keep things future focused as much as possible while also keeping my compelling vision top of mind. So how do you do that? Well, I want to show you a picture that means a lot to me, and it is a picture of elephants. So I was doing a repitch for somebody, which basically means I sell for them on their stage. And I was looking for information about queens. Not important for this part of the story, but I was looking for queens. And I found a documentary called The Elephant Queen or The Queen Elephant. I can't remember exactly, but I started to watch this documentary. And it was all about elephants and different tribes of elephants. And the way tribes of elephants works is there's a female tribe and there's a male tribe. They're separated. But the female tribe is the leadership of the kingdom. And within the female tribe of elephants, there's one elephant called the matriarch, the queen. She is the one that all the other elephants listen to and they follow. She is full of wisdom. No one questions the queen matriarch. Now, elephants are really interesting because they have the skill to actually weigh out options. Most animals are animalistic, you could say, where they don't even really think through things. They just attack and do what they want. But elephants are so smart and they have such an insane memory. So in this particular documentary, the story was about these elephants who lived off this water hole. And the water hole was starting to go down and a drought was coming. And so these elephants had to really decide, really the queen elephant, the matriarch, had to make a decision. Does she stay with all the other elephants and wait for the rain to come, or does she take the risk and go on a trek to find another water hole? Now, the queen has to take a lot of into consideration. She's got to think about the health of the other elephants. There's some babies in the tribe. Is everyone, feeling well? Are there are there elephants that are too old to go? But in this particular documentary, she decides to go. Now, as they're walking to find the next water hole, it was the craziest thing because it just looked like a desert. There were no landmarks that showed any signs of knowing how to get to the next water hole. And I kept watching this documentary and I was thinking, how does this queen know which direction to go? She was walking with such a purpose, with such a mission, she knew where the water hole was, and I had no idea how she would know. And there was one sentence that the narrator said. He said, "The mental mapping of this elephant has been passed down from her mother, and she has never forgotten on how to get to the next water hole." And I had this realization. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. This mom elephant, her mom, the matriarch's mom, took the risk to go find the water hole and brought her baby with her. And through that path, this mom developed a mental mapping of how to find the next step for survival. And through that process, she brought her daughter so that she could pass down her mental mapping for this water hole. And there's so many things that happen in the documentary. And at the very end, there's these two baby elephants called Princess and Weiwei. And the narrator said, these baby elephants have now acquired the knowledge that they need for their survival. And I just thought about, it makes me emotional to think about all these moms who think, I'm going to wait to pursue my dreams until my kids are older. I'm going to wait until, they don't need me quite as much. But what if your kids need you the most right now to actually go on that path to the water hole so that you can pass down the mental mapping? I know when my dad taught me sales, he was all about hey, Macy, I don't just want to pass down the money. I don't want to pass down the wealth. I want to pass down the mental software that creates the wealth. And that is why this picture means so much to me. It's a picture of the baby elephant and the mom walking on the trail to find the next water hole. And this is my representation of me going on my journey and literally bringing my kids with me so that they can also have the mental mapping to experience success in their life. So another thing that really helps me stay locked in on the mission is actually one tiny little experience I had with a man named Daniel Priestley. He's an incredible author, and we had the opportunity to speak together at an event, and we were backstage, and he has these software companies and he just consults people and he just kills it in the game. And I asked him, I said, Daniel, did you always kind of have an inkling that you were going to be wealthy, or were you born wealthy? Tell me a little bit about your path to success. He said, I wasn't born wealthy, but I always had a hunch that I would be. He said, in fact, when I was a teenager, all my friends were buying lottery tickets. And that is one thing that I would never do, because I knew if I won the lottery, it would ruin the plot. It would ruin the story. Because if I got wealthy from the lottery, but I also built a big business, everybody would say, oh, he just is successful because he won the lottery. And I never wanted to have that excuse. And so there's a lot of times where I feel like life can feel a little challenging, okay? We got a lot going on. We got a business. We got trying to stay healthy. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. And I'm like, wow, this is hard, right? But my next thought, honestly, a lot of times is I think about that moment. I'm like, you know what, Macy? Do it for the plot. Like, what a cool story to build a $20 million business with kids that are the ages of 2 and 4 right now. What a cool story that our team has collectively birthed how many babies? I don't even know. It's been like 5 or 6 babies in the process of building this business. What a cool opportunity to be an example of what is possible for other moms. So we have a picture right here. This is actually an article that I wrote for Sales Girl Social, and I had Christina, my amazing office girly, right? Do it for the plot, because it's always my reminder that it is worth it for the story. Next, I love sprinkling in confirmation of success. So your brain is kind of wild because it will refer to the past to know how to handle the present and the future. And it honestly makes sense. And it's very important for our survival. Like, if you were to burn your hand on the stove yesterday, and then you see the stove today, you think, oh, I better stay away from that so I don't burn myself again. So what a lot of times people will do is they'll look for the past and naturally your brain kind of looks at what didn't go well in the past. And you subconsciously are using that as a reason not to do something in the present or in the future. So I like to sprinkle in all these past experiences of success so that my brain can get wired into thinking, oh, you know what, like, we've done that before and it's worked, or, we've taken a risk and it's been worth it. So I can continue to feel really good about doing that in the future. I actually had a conversation with a student 2 days ago, and she was telling me, hey, it takes someone 9 months to buy from me once they come into my world. And I'm like, how do you know? She's like, I know it. Every time I look at the data, that's what it says. And I'm like, right. And data is super important. I also make data-driven decisions. I really do. But I also used to think it takes people a year to buy from me. In fact, I used to think it took 4 webinars, and we would do one once a quarter. And once they would go through all the webinars, they would end up buying. And when you have that belief, you end up creating environments where that's how long it takes people to buy from you. And it's simply just not true. Now people will find us, and then 5 days later, they'll spend $75,000 with us. Isn't that crazy? So I just love to sprinkle in pictures of how things can be different and can change. So for example, this is a text that Kat sent. It says, feeling cute. Might have $1 million day today. And this was us on the way to our event called Sales Girl Summit. And I responded, period. Y'all, I actually might cause a stampede, because I was revealing the offer. So we about to find out. And Kat said, yep, let's mess around. And this is actually the day that we hit our $1 million day. So I love to look at this picture and just remind myself, we did that. I also have testimonials. We have so many testimonials of students that have won with us, and I like to have them framed. Like, for example, there's one right here on the wall that says, I made more on a random Monday than I did my first year out of college. Like, do you realize that that is a world in which people live in? It's crazy. Someone said that she's at $25,000 sales in just 30 days after working with us. So I love to have big numbers kind of everywhere. In fact, now that I'm looking, I need to have bigger numbers up in here, because think about these big numbers all around you as a marinade, okay? And you're kind of marinating yourself in these numbers. And what does a marinade do? It breaks down the fibers of meat so that it's a lot more tender and easier to chew on. And so a lot of us have these numbers, these ideas, like we're like, wow, if I could make $1 million a year, that would just blow my mind. I would rather you think, oh, only $1 million, that's no problem. So I need to be having $100 million, $10 million, $50 million all up in this office so I can marinate in those numbers and they feel just totally normal. The next section of the messages that you say to yourself is cues. So what are cues? Cues help you remember things, right? They trigger something for you to remember things that you want to remember. So one of my cues that I have is a picture of a telephone booth. Now, the reason why this is so powerful is because maybe you know this, maybe not, but Superman, or should I say Clark Kent, turns into Superman after he goes into the telephone booth. He transforms in that booth. And what I want this office to represent is it's a little bit like my telephone booth. Like when I come in here, I leave whatever is happening on the outside and I transform into a sales girl. Now, another thing that I think is really cool in the book Alter Ego, they talk about a lot about alter egos, but specifically, they said this about Clark Kent. I thought that was really cool. He said, Superman's alter ego, it isn't Superman. His actual alter ego is Clark Kent. Superman is the real person. He created the alter ego, a mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, as a useful persona to go unnoticed day to day to blend in to help him achieve a crucial goal, which is this, ready? Understanding humans. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm in like my day-to-day life and I feel out of place. I feel like I'm in a different world. I feel like I just want to go be a sales girl. I want to talk about visions and goals and where we're going. And then I get into my normal life and I'm like, oh, this is so hard. If you resonate with that, please put that in the comments. It's like I'm in this ordinary world that I'm not used to being in. And all I really want to do is go be me, which is the sales girl, like the one who has these goals and on stage. Like, honestly, I'm not even kidding you when I say I am more comfortable selling on stage than I am sometimes sitting at dinner with some girlfriends. Like, I'm more comfortable doing my thing right here than talking about laundry with a friend. But I also know that that's important for relationships. So what that telephone booth really does for me, it reminds me that it is good to go and be Macy in an ordinary world so that I can understand humans and be a better sales girl. Because what sales girls do is we communicate to people in new ways so that they can experience a new life. But I have to really understand people so that I can communicate to people. It also helps me remember to really like leave the sales girl world and be the mom, right? Like be present as a mom. I know for me, I honestly, if I didn't have kids, I'd probably work 24/7 around the clock because I genuinely just love it so much. So I also bring a change of clothes to physically change clothes so that I can go be Macy. I can go be the mom. I can go be the wife. I can go to the tennis practices. I can take my son to swim lessons and know that that is a huge, important part of my job. And then when I come in here, I come into my telephone booth, so to speak, I leave everything at the door and I become the sales girl to do what I'm made to do. So that's what that photo booth represents. Another little cue that I have right over there, it's the pendulum. And what it represents, I don't know if you know this, but it represents that a body in motion stays in motion. Newton's first law of energy. So yes, it's for me. Like Macy, stay in momentum, stay in motion so that you can continue to keep up that momentum. But it's also a reminder for me that my goal as a sales girl is to get other people in motion. I'm telling you what, 99% of the world is living their life as a spectator. They are spectating and consuming and spectating and consuming, and they don't actually participate. But if they would just take their first step into action, they would stay in motion. I always like to say, standing up from a chair requires discipline, but helping someone else stand up from a chair requires you to sell them. So if I want to get people in motion, to stay in motion, it's my job to really communicate in a way that gets them to take action. And I know that everyone's life is completely different and so much better when they start participating instead of spectating. So we've talked about the microenvironments that you see, the messages that you are saying to yourself, and the last and final section of how to brainwash yourself are the models that you emulate. Now, listen, there's not one single person except for Jesus Christ himself that I'm like, yes, I love everything about them. I love what they do. I love their lifestyle. I love how they talk. I love it. I want to be just like them. There's not a single person like that, but there are lots of people that have like little things about them, little characteristics that I think, man, I would like if I could pick anything about them, I would want to be just like that. I call this take the meat and leave the bones. So I have lots of people that I look up to and that I listen to and that I learn from, but I also have these very specific people that I think of them as my board of advisors. They don't know me at all, but listen, I know them. And I like to pretend like they're in my mind when I'm solving a problem, when I'm dealing with something, I picture them and I think, okay, if they were solving this problem, what would they say? How would they react? What are their thoughts? So there are two people specifically that I want to tell you about today, and I actually have pictures of them framed in my office so that they can join me in all of my meetings in my mind. Listen, if you girlies right here ever want to come speak at Sales Girl Summit, you just let me know, okay? First one is Brooke Castillo. Brooke Castillo is the founder of the Life Coach School, and she teaches life coaching. I've probably been listening to her probably since about 2018. The woman has no idea that I even breathe air, okay? No idea. But the way I know this woman inside and out, up and down, she's changed my life. So scripture says to take captive of your thoughts, right? But what Brooke has helped me do is have a framework to do just that. She's helped me understand how to get back into consciousness and take captive of your thoughts, rewire them consciously, and then put them back into the subconscious mind. I'm certified as a life coach through her, but I'll tell you specifically what I love about Brooke the most. Is I love this one piece of her story where she seems like an overnight success, honestly. There was a 3-year period where she went from $300,000 to $15 million. Really sink that in for just a second. 300,000 to 15 million. We're going to 1 to 5 million. And the growth has been like a rocket ship that we're putting together as we're going up. It's been crazy. I cannot imagine 300,000 to 15 million, but the 3 years isn't even that impressive. I'll tell you what's impressive to me is the 10 years that she was a coach before that $300,000 mark. In fact, she even tells stories about how she was thinking about calling it quits after those 10 years. And she was like, listen, I either got to be done or I got to go all in. And she went all in. So when I look at this picture, I love to think about the years where Brooke had nobody on her calls, where nobody was listening to her. No one cared about what she had to say. Life coach, she even said that life coaches didn't even exist back then. And if they did, people thought that they were silly and not worth it. And just get a therapist. And she kept going. There's a lot of overnight success stories, but what I found is that the overnight success typically have about a 10-year run rate before they experience that overnight success. And so when things get hard, when things get challenging, I look at my girl Brooke, and I remember that part of her story. I love you, Brookie. Auntie Brooke is what I call you. You've changed my life. Thank you so much. The next one is my girl, Sarah Blakely. Now, Sarah, girl, you need a podcast or something so that I can listen to you if you're watching this, okay? There's so many things I love about you, Sarah. I'm just going to pretend like you're watching this. But Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. And there's so many things that I love about Sarah, but I'll tell you specifically what I just adore about her. First of all, I love that she is just fun. So she is a shark on the Shark Tank. And there was one clip where Mr. Wonderful is what they call him. He's like, business is hard. They're going to eat you alive. You better get ready. And Sarah, I think, made a comment like, what are you talking about? Business is fun. She is lighthearted. She enjoys what she does. I am working on being fun. I am very intense and I really desire to have that lightheartedness about me. And so that is something that I look to Sarah for. But one of my favorite things about her is people will ask her, Sarah, how did you get your product in Neiman Marcus? That's so wild. That's so crazy. And she'll say, what are you talking about? I just called them. I remember a video of her she posted on Instagram. She just started her Instagram and she was trying to get followers and someone filmed her walking up to a security guard at the airport. And she said, sir, do you have Instagram? Would you mind following me? Here, pull up your phone. Let me show you how to find my Instagram. Please follow. It's like one by one. She's just willing to ask. When she did get in Neiman Marcus, she stood beside her kiosk selling her Spanx one-on-one, wearing a Spanx shirt. She would call her friends and pay them to wear a Spanx shirt. She was willing to do the thing one by one. And that lightheartedness and the willingness just to straight up ask is something that I admire so much. So Sarah, please get a podcast and please come speak at our Sales Girl Summit. I know you love the Sales Girls and I know you love moms and you believe that if you want something done, ask a mom. And I agree. Now I want to talk about the characteristics that I like to copy. So I just mentioned the people that I like to take the meat and leave the bones, right? Take the things that I love about them and try to put those on. I was actually watching the 2024 Olympics, the Paris Olympics, and there was a swimmer. I wasn't like really watching it. It was just in the background. So I don't remember who said it. I don't remember. I just heard this one sentence and I was like, whoa, it stopped me in my tracks. A swimmer, I think he had just won, and they were interviewing him about all the work that he had done to prepare. And he said, yeah, I've spent so much of my time watching videos of cheetahs and dolphins, trying to emulate the way their bodies move. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I never thought about looking at animals in that way, of how like God really created them for certain purposes and the things that they resemble, and how you can actually emulate different types of animals and like the things that God has created. So I started to think about, okay, what are pieces of animals that I really admire? And remember, I don't love everything about all the animals, right? I like specific things about certain animals. And I'll tell you, one of the animals that I really admire is a shark. And the reason why is I feel like whenever I see videos of sharks underneath the water, I might be making this up in my own mind, and maybe it's the music in the video, I'm not sure, but I feel like you can just sense a shark is near. Like the fish can sense it. They kind of part ways for the shark. And the shark is so confident. It doesn't really have anything to prove, right? There's nothing it needs to do or not do to show that it's in command. It just is. And there is a command and a presence that a shark has, and everyone, I feel like, respects a shark, right? We don't want to mess with the shark. We just respect the shark. And so when I think about the specific arenas that I show up in, the arena that I desire to have that commanding presence is on stage. And the shark is, like I said, it doesn't have anything to prove. It has a confidence, and people kind of sense that there is a commanding presence in the water, so to speak. And so when I walk onto a stage or I walk into a room, my thought is like, I'm in control of the energy here. I set the tone. I am the mood meter. And another person, so I like to combine animals and people. And so there's a person that I really admire on stage, and that is Mr. Myron Golden. He is my coach. There's so many things I love about Myron. I love that he has a relaxed intensity about him. And I feel that way about a shark, right? A relaxed intensity. He has command over the stage. He is who he is. He has absolutely nothing to prove. And the way that he shares stories and concepts is life-changing for people. But of course, Myron is extremely masculine. And I am not that. I don't want to be that. I want to be the feminine, soft sales girl version. So I have a shark tooth right here, but it's not just any shark tooth. It's a silver shark tooth, because of course, Myron is Myron Golden. He's gold, but I don't want to be gold. I want to be silver. So the silver shark tooth represents the spirit and the commanding presence of a shark, and also the relaxed intensity that Myron has and that I desire to have as well. There is an author named Bishop T.D. Jakes, and he talks about this concept of turtles and giraffes. So I don't know if you know this, but turtles and giraffes actually take up the same circumference on the ground, especially like a large turtle. But obviously, giraffes are much taller than turtles. So giraffes have a 25-pound heart, and that heart pumps blood up the 9-foot neck. If a giraffe bends its neck down and eats from the ground for too long, it cuts off the circulation and the giraffe will pass out. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? Giraffes need to eat at the level of their vision. If they endanger their position, they will endanger if they endanger their perspective, they will endanger their position. And a lot of times, like if you're an entrepreneur and if you are in business, like you'll resonate with this. You feel like you're just built to be tall, right? You just kind of do things differently and you think differently. But we have lots of people in our life that are kind of like turtles, right? They just have a different vision. They're eating at a different level, but they might be a little bit critical to what you're doing. And it's nobody's fault. Like turtles are made to be turtles and giraffes are made to be giraffes. And so what this giraffe represents is just the reminder for me to eat at the level of my vision, to stay focused, to keep my head high, and know that turtles are meant to be turtles, but I am made to be a giraffe. And on this giraffe is what I call a sales girl scarf. So something that I like to kind of take on in my mind is something called the sales girl essence. And the sales girl essence is the perfect mixture of spirit and skill, of warmth and of competence. And it's a reminder to really ignite that warmth inside of me and being so encouraging and loving to other people, but also having and communicating with a certain level of skill to really communicate my competence. You want to have that perfect mixture where you're not too warm that people don't believe that you can help them, but not too competent to where you feel a little bit cold. So this is my sales girl scarf to remind me. Sometimes I love to wear a scarf in my hair, or on my neck, or on my wrist, and that is my token to remember to put on that sales girl essence. All right, so we've talked about models in terms of people. We've talked about models in terms of animals and different tokens that you can have to remind you of certain things. But I also want you to remember that you are also an amazing model for yourself. So I have a mirror in my office. Yes, it is for the outfit checks. Don't be mistaken. But also it is a symbol to reflect on myself. It's actually been proven that when there are mirrors present, you're more likely to make better decisions. A mirror helps you be a little bit more self-reflective of your emotions and your thoughts. Hello, taking your thoughts captive, as I talked about earlier. So I like to have mirrors around, not just to look at myself, but to have that reminder of, okay, first of all, am I a representation of something that I'm proud of? Would I want to buy from me? And am I an example of what is possible? I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that it inspires you to really set the tone for for your environment, to come into a place and get to work, to remind yourself that you are on a mission. You have a very special assignment and calling on your life, and God made you to go after it and to serve His children with your gift. Go get them, sales girl.